Hello, in this video we are looking at the Bhagavad Gita Chapter 2 verse 3. As usual, I'll read it first without the text up. Klaibyammasmagamah partha naita tvayupapadyate kshudrang hridaya daurbalyan tyaktvuttishta parantapa. I'll call up the text. Oops, here we are. Klaibyammasmagamah partha naitatvayupapadyate kshudrang hridaya daurbalyan tyaktvuttishta parantapa. The principal verb in the first line, it's a compound, it's masmagamah, do not go. Literally, so do not go to weakness. In other words, do not be weak, do not fall into weakness. It's actually from the, let me just share iPad here. Kliba. The word kliba, not a very common word, is the adjective kliba, which means impotent. I think it meant impotent primarily in the sexual sense, and then by extension, generally weak-spirited, weak. And like many adjectives, it forms an abstract noun by applying vriddhi to the first vowel. So kli becomes klai, and the final a becomes ya. So klaibya. So here, it's a general sense of being weak and powerless. So whereas in English we might say do not be weak, in Sanskrit you can say do not go to weakness or do not fall into weakness. Do not go. Here it's given as masmagamaha. Now, there's more than one way of forming a negative imperative. Let's look at just the imperative on its own. So the root gum, to go, slightly irregular as we know it because it makes its present tense or the present system, which includes the present and the imperative with a ch. So gachati, he, she, or it goes. From that stem, present stem, we make the imperative gacha, just go. Gacha. That's two. That's second singular. You can make an imperative, a negative imperative. Whereas, for example, the ordinary negative is a na. He does not go. He, she, it does not go. Na gachati. Where you're making a negative imperative, do not do something, you use instead the not na but ma. So do not go. We could say ma gacha. Now, there's the aorist tense, formed in various ways. It's quite a complex tense, so I won't go into it in detail here. But aorist, I went, is agamam. This particular one is formed quite simply. Agamaha, agamat. Agamam, I went. Agamaha, you singular went. Agamat, he, she, it went. So look at this agamaha. This is the aorist that is formed with the prefix a. It's called the augment among grammarians, and that's taken from the Greek actually. So the agama means you went. Now, what you can do to make another way of forming the negative imperative is to use the ma, take the aorist form of the second singular, agama, and then just use that same word but without the augment. So ma gamaha, do not go. It's just a way of making a present negative imperative. And that's the feature that we have here in the revised notes to this text. I think I have, yes, I have referred you to paragraph 180 of Macdonnell, which explains this use of ma with the unaugmented aorist to make a negative imperative. So do not go. The sma in here it doesn't really add anything as a modal emphatic. I'm not sure that it adds much here, if anything, to the actual meaning. May have just a bit of an emotive, not just do not go. Now is hardly the time. Masma, gama. So there's a little bit of an emotive tone to it, possibly. Note that this sma is very often used particularly in Buddhist texts, not so much in the Hindu texts, to just to put on the end of a present to make it into a past. So you'll see, for example, that in some of the Pali texts, you'll see the Buddha was dwelling in such and such a place, Bhagavad Viharati, using a present tense meaning the past. In Sanskrit, they will use the present tense with a sma after it. Viharati sma means it makes a present into a past. So what the Buddha was dwelling in such and such a place when such and such happened. Here it doesn't have any of that meaning. Of course, it's just, as I say, a modal particle. Partha. This is just one of the numerous names of Arjuna. It actually means son of Pritha. The father was called Pritha, and so this is a patronymic, also with Vriddhi, and with the final syllable change from a to a. So Partha would mean son of Pritha. So Clabium mas magamah partha naita tvayupapadyate. So from the root pad, meaning to go, upapad, meaning to go towards, and here it has the extension. Sorry, it has the extended meaning of to befitting conduct towards someone, fitting conduct on someone's part. We talk about this does not become you in older English, meaning it's not suitable for you to act in this kind of way. It does not become you. It's pretty much that same meaning here. Notice that pad is a class 4 atmanepada verb. So let me call up iPad again. So root pad, and it's a class 4 atmanepada. Class 4 meaning, of course, it adds a ya before the thematic endings are. So not padati, but padya. And then atmanepada, so not padyati, but padyate. So padyate. And when you see a padyate, say, you can tell immediately it's a class 4 because of the ya, and tell it's atmanepada because it's got the a on. Now, actually, I'll row back slightly on that. You can't immediately tell. Because also if you take, for example, the root pach, you get, that's a class 1 parasmaipada, pachati. But if you make a passive out of that. It is cooked. What happens to make the passive? You include the ya, insert the ya, and of course passive automatically takes the atmanepada endings. So if you see the word pachyate, if you didn't know what it meant, you might think one of two things. First, it's the passive form of pach, pachyate, pachati, active, pachyate, passive, or it's a class 4 atmanepada, as in padyate. So pachyate is in fact only a passive. Padyate is in fact only a class 4 atmanepada. You just have, there's an inherent ambiguity in the form. You just have to know or check which one we're looking at. So here padyate, class 4 atmanepada. Upapadyate, it does not become you. It's unsuitable for you. And it does not become you. It does not go up to you, literally. It takes the locative. So twam, you, tvayi is the locative form, literally in you. Here we have tvayi upapadyate. So we apply the normal rules of Sandhi here. We have an I followed by a dissimilar vowel, u. If the next word had begun with an I or an E, all that would have happened in the Sandhi would be to lengthen that and make it a long E. But it's a different vowel, it's an U, so it becomes tvayupapadyate, and that, so the E becomes a Y, as we know. That's normal. So what happens here, there is the tva, the Y of tvayi remains, and what happens, it doubles, because the following E also becomes a Y, and it's that phenomenon that gives us this double Y that we see in this text. I've explained it. Tvayi upapadyate, tvayupapadyate. So, oops. So, klaibyam masma gamaha partha. Do not indulge in weakness. Do not fall into weakness, impotence, O son of Pritha. Na etat tvayupapadyate. Etat, this behavior, just this na etat tvayi upapadyate, not this to you is becoming, is suitable. So na etat here becomes naitat, naitat. We see here it's all joined by Santi, naitat tvayupapadyate, and here we see the y doubled with the u under it. And here we have with the sandhi taken out, na etat tvayi upapadyate, with sandhi naitat tvayi upapadyate. Kshudrang hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa. Kshudram. I've done a note here. It's actually cognate with the Persian word khurde, meaning small or trifling or little. Khurda in Urdu. Kshudra, the primary meaning in Sanskrit and Pali is something very small. But then by extension, it means petty or mean-spirited, something like that. Rather like in French, the word petit just means small, the ordinary adjective meaning small, petit. But in English, the English or anglicized form of it, which is petty, has come to mean something mean-spirited and small-minded. Sometimes small in the sense of junior, as in the Navy. A petty officer is literally a little officer, not a fully commissioned officer, but a junior type of officer, petty officer. But in this sense of petty, what's happened with the meaning of kshudra, and in English petite to petty, is rather the same, because it means something petty or mean-spirited. Now, if you look, I won't deal with it at length here, but those of you who are doing Pali, if you look at the Karaniya Metta Sutta, there's the Nacha Kuddam Samachare Kinchi, which in Sanskrit would be Nacha Kshudrang Samacharete Kinchit. So it's often translated there as let one not do the slightest thing, which is linguistically, I think, potentially a perfectly correct translation. But I tend to the view that, in fact, it's not cautioning you against tiny transgressions. Otherwise, you'd never stop worrying. But it may have the hint. Either it is doing that, or it also has the hint of not doing anything kind of mean or mean-spirited, just not nice to people. Something that in modern English we would call mean or petty. Here, it has the meaning of like something that is unbecoming for this Aryan warrior. You know, on a leading warrior on the just before battle is about to commence, then his weakness is very much kshudram. You know, it is totally inappropriate for that moment. So the second line, kshudrang hridaya daurbalyan tyaktvuttishta parantapa. Parantapa, the other burner, destroyer, the burner up of your enemies. So here we have uttishta, stand up, from the root stha. Have I done a note on it? Yeah, I've done a note on it. Uttishta, we have the root stha, to stand up. He, she, it stands, is tishtati. It's slightly irregular. It's got a part reduplication of the first syllable. So tishtati. The imperative is tishta, stand. Tishta. In Pali, it would be titta. Now, what happens? This is ut, meaning up. So stand up, get up. Ut stha. Now, by a general rule of phonetics and sandhi in Sanskrit, where you have an S between two stops, that is, between a p, k, t, d, that S drops out. So ut stha, the S drops out and becomes utta. And that is what gives us then in the imperative form not uttishta, but just uttitta, uttishta, so uttishta, instead of uttishta. I'm sorry, I'm going to row back a little bit there. I've just realized I've been off at a little bit of a tangent. Because if you look at it, okay, back to where ut-sta becomes utta. The S drops out. I'm sorry, my brain had gone wrong there. So back to where we were. So since it has this reduplicative element to it, sorry, here we are. Oh, iPad's gone wrong. Oh. Here we are. We have root sta, ut plus sta is what it would normally be, but it becomes utta because of the rule that the S drops out between a t and the following t. Utsa, utta. Now, present tense, he, she, it stands tishtati with that partial reduplication. Imperative, so I don't know what's going wrong here. Imperative, tishta. Now, uttishta, stand up, get up. Of course, the dropping of the s rule, of course, no longer applies here because we've got the uttishta. Hisan tishtati, uttishtati. The S is there because it doesn't fall between two stops. So uttishta, stand up. Stand up, having done what? Tyaktva, having abandoned. So abandoning this mean, this vile weakness of heart. Stand up, get up. O parantapa. Tyaktva, that's from the root tyaj. So we've got just having abandoned, abandoning, tyaktva, then by internal santi becomes tyaktva. So abandoning, literally having abandoned, but in English would be more say abandoning this weakness, get up. In English, we'd more likely use abandon this weakness and get up. In Sanskrit and in Pali, it's far more normal when you have two verbs both applying to the same person to put all verbs, or two or more verbs, to put the verbs before the final one in the absolutive form. It could say, I mean, it could have tyajati, he abandons. Tyaja, would be the imperative form. Tyaja, abandon. I mean, it could have said kshudram hridaya daurbalyam bodvalyan tyaja uttishtacha. But it's much more natural in Sanskrit and Pali to put the preceding verb in the absolutive form, literally having abandoned this weakness, stand up. And tyaktva uttishta, of course, by santi, tyaktvotishta, the a-u becoming an o. Pull up the text again. It's tyaktvotishta, tyaktva uttishta. And yet again, it's lost my text boxes. See if I can get them back for you. Borders all. Sometimes it just there we are. So hridaya is a word meaning heart. In fact, it's cognate with our English word heart. Hridaya, heart. The h became a k in Latin and Greek. So the Greek word in a cardio, cardia in modern Greek, cardia in classical Greek, from cor cordis in Latin, cordial greetings, greetings from the heart. It's that same word into French liqueur, of course, and Spanish in extended form corazon. But it's the same word, heart. Hridaya daurbalyam. Now, daurbalyam is weakness, and I will explain. iPad again. We know the word bala is the noun, neuter noun, balam, bala meaning strength. With the prefix dush, duh, here it's dur because of the following b, durbala. It doesn't mean bad strength. Dur in this context can have a negating effect, so without strength. And we can make an abstract noun out of this, just as the vriddhi, just as we saw from Kliba in line 1 becomes abstract noun klaibia. So vriddhi of the first syllable and a to ya in the second, exactly the same we do here, even though it's a compound, exactly the same applies. So vriddhi of u is au, daurbalya, durbala, weak, daurbalya, weakness. So hridya daurbalyam, literally heart weakness, this abandon, this mean pusillanimity, this weakness of heart. Um, Another example of this phenomenon is we all know the word kusala in Pali, kushala in Sanskrit. Anything that is, good, generally in a moral sense, conducive to the right life on the path. Kusala in Pali. And it makes the abstract noun in exactly the same way. So kaushalya is goodness, just the abstract noun of kushala. And in Pali, Pali follows the same, but we know that Pali does not have an au, so what is an au in Sanskrit just becomes an o in Pali, and the consonant cluster lia just becomes a double L in Pali. So kusala, kosala, kushala, kaushalya. Back to the text again. This parantapa, literally other burner, the burner up, the destroyer of others. Others here in the specific sense of those who are on the other side, your enemies or your foes. It very often happens in compounds. This is a compound, and it's what you might call an accusative compound. It's a tatpurusha. It's an accusative compound in that it's formed of a verb, or a verb now put in adjectival form, tap, to burn, tapa, and its object, but formed together into a compound noun or adjective. Here it's a noun. Normally, in compounds, you do not decline the members before the la. You decline the end of it, of course, as the normal word ending, but you can have paratapa, for example. But you very often find that in these accusative compounds, particularly where you have a short vowel followed by a short vowel in the verb root, and particularly if there's a dental there, a dental t, you'll find the nasal comes back in. So paratapa, parantapa, it sounds better, da 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 dum, rather than da 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 da, parantapa. And for instance, Lucifer, bearer of light, Juti Dhara, it becomes Jutindhara. In Pali, Jutindhara, meaning bearer of light, means Lucifer, but it's used as a very nice name in Pali, the bearer of light. So that is the explanation for this this mark of the accusative, even inside a compound. It does occasionally happen. It happens in other cases as well, mostly not, but we do see it. For example, the Buddha often says, speaking in Pali now, to his disciples, mark well or take this well into yourselves. Yunisu manasi karota. So it would normally be manaskara or manakara in Sanskrit, becomes manasi, use the locative, even though it's in a compound. Just occasionally you find it. I think that deals with all of the grammatical bits I needed to say. So I will just read it through with you once more. Get as much of the text up as I can. Okay. Klaibyam masmagamah partha naitattvayupapadyate kshudrang hridaya daurbalyan tyaktvuttishta parantapa. And once more. Klaibyam masmagamah partha naitattvayupapadyate kshudrang hridaya daurbalyan tyaktvuttishta parantapa. And that's it on this video.